edition of the Horned Frog Blitz podcast. Wrapping up the season finale for TCU. TCU coming off a 28-21 win over Baylor last week. Frogs finished the regular season at 10-2. We're going to talk about that tonight. We got plenty to talk about. We're going to talk about some playoff talk. We're going to talk bowl talk. Of course, dive into some recruiting. Talk a little bit about the elephant in the room that everyone wants to know about. I'm Jeremy Clark, joined as always by my good friend Jeremiah Glenn. Jeremiah, how are you doing tonight, man?
Man, I'm doing good, and it's exciting time of the year. You know, you're about to find out all the bowl game destinations and so many changes in the coaching across the country. So many coaches on the move. I mean, this is fun. This is why we do this stuff.
How do you keep up with it, man?
You know, I mean, it's so fast paced and it's moving at such a crazy pace, but I wouldn't rather be doing anything else. I mean, this is a lot of fun.
Well, unfortunately, we've got to talk about some coaching changes, possible coaching changes that could be happening to TCU's program.
What are you talking about? I hadn't heard about that.
Oh, gosh. Anyway, lots to dive into tonight. I hope you guys stick around for the entire podcast. But let's first start off with that big win last week. It is almost a week now. I mean, it seems like it just happened yesterday, but the Frogs beat Baylor 28-21. In cold, rainy conditions. I went down for the last 3 minutes of the game, about froze my tail off just being down there for that short amount of time. But I tell you what, man, I've told a lot of people, I don't care what the conditions were like that night, the defense played like the TCU of old. I mean, they were dialed in, they were getting to the quarterback, they were playing some good coverage on defense. Secondary looked great. I mean, you hold Baylor to 7 of 24 passing for 62 yards. They haven't thrown for, that amount of yards, or the least amount of yards, I guess you could say, since 2002. Great job by the entire defense. Ty Summers has 23 tackles, but more importantly, it was a win against Baylor. The game probably didn't have the luster it did at the beginning of the year, but nonetheless, you're still 10-2, and you get bragging rights for a year.
And obviously, you're going to have your naysayers say, well, you only slowed Baylor's offense down because of the weather. Obviously the weather affected both teams, but the fact is TCU won the game. I don't care that it was a third-string quarterback. TCU's as banged up as any team in the country. Like you said earlier in the season, that was the game that everybody in the country wanted to see. And if you saw the rankings or the TV ratings, it actually was one of the highest-rated games all year long. So ESPN cleaned house on the ratings. But I love the way the Frogs played defense. I think obviously Gary Patterson loved that part of the game, to get to be able to roll up his sleeves and two teams just running head to head and going after it, and he coaches his teams to be hard nosed and tough, and that kind of played right into their hands. The 4th and 1 stop at the end of the game, two true freshmen making that stop. I mean, the future is so bright for this team.
Yeah.
They've got so much. They grew up this year. It's exciting to see, and that it's good for the program. You're at 10 wins again, and there's so many things that win did for you, including help you get a better bowl game too.
That game had everything in it to me. I mean, you had the elements. I mean, I love cold weather football to begin with, but when you have rain coming down, it was a hard mist early in the game, and then late in the game, it became a hard rain. Anyone that was down there late in the second half can tell you that much. But you had two strong defenses, and I'll give Baylor credit. Baylor played some really good defense as well. But you had two good defenses. You had the elements that were causing havoc on both offenses. The offenses couldn't really get it going. But as I mentioned earlier, even with the bad conditions, the secondary was still playing extremely well for TCU. When the ball went up in the air vertically, and usually in those kind of conditions, the receiver typically has the advantage because they know where they're going. The defensive back doesn't know where they're going, and usually that can cause some pretty good separation. But Baylor really didn't have a ton of separation that night. You combine Katie Cannon and Corey Coleman to 4 catches for 36 yards is just unheard of, especially with that offense. But the game was, 14-14 at the end of the regulation, and then you still had the sparks of overtime. You still had the energy, and my gosh, man, the energy in that place late in the game, even though it wasn't a packed house, understandably so, you have to give credit to TCU fan base, especially that student section, man. I mean, my gosh, they were out there a full hour before the game, already loading up the section, stayed through the whole game, cheered loud, and even the players and Coach Patterson said after the game that crowd really did help them out late in the game. But it is just one of those games where you wanted so bad for TCU to get the win, just because it's a 10-2 season with so much adversity. There's no question that Gary Patterson should get the Big 12 Coach of the Year, and I think he should again be up for several National Coach of the Year awards.
Well, you look at what he's done in his career. This is the 10th time in 14 years as a head coach to win at least 10 games. And I will say, in my opinion, this is the best coaching job he's ever done.
Yeah.
You look at last year, and he won all the Coach of the Year awards. And then, was it 2010 that he won a bunch as well? I don't remember, but you look at what he did with what he had this year. He never allowed those guys to not believe that they weren't as good as the starters. He never allowed those guys to not believe that they weren't expected to step in and do everything that a starter would do. And because from the top down that thought process went through the team, those guys bought in. You just listen to the guys at the press conference that they send. It's like it's a mirror image of GP. Yeah. And those guys are taking what GP is saying. He's taking it to the younger guys, and that's all they hear is you're expected to play at the same level. And so because of that, the kids start believing, and they saw a gradual improvement throughout the year. And at the end of the year, they're standing there going, we are one of the best teams in the country, and we do have a ton of experience now, even though we're young. So that's what I like. That's what I took out of it the most. I think TCU, their growth on the defensive side of the ball all season kind of culminated in that game and really came together, and it was really fun to watch them play. And I'll be honest with you, as fun as that game was, I was really excited about overtime because they were only 25 yards away, and I knew more likely to score instead of trying to march it down the field because neither team was having any luck doing that. So, but that was an exciting game to watch.
Well, funny thing is how TCU had never had the depth to compete in the Big 12, but yet they had to play this season with a ton of second and third stringers that were probably not going to get a ton of playing time this year, but obviously forced into that playing time because of injuries. And, just goes to show the coaching job that Patterson and company can get accomplished. And man, what a slap in the face of all those opposing fan bases that said TCU couldn't get it done. They're 15-3 the last 2 years in the Big 12,
and I think it goes up from here.
Yeah,
I don't think there's not going to be a drop off next year. The experience that these guys garnered this year and the talent that they have coming in, the guys coming back from injury next year, plus in Fuego Kenny Hill from what we hear.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a minimum 10 wins next year in my opinion.
Very, very, very good chance that could happen, especially with that schedule, because schedule is awesome again, just like it was in 2014. They only have to leave the state twice, and they get buys at the
perfect time
of the season. But the schedule, with all the guys they have returning, I was looking at the roster the other day, and I think with all the guys that have really had to step up this year, they'll have 8 or 9 guys that are returning starters on the defense. So obviously offense is going to be where it's at to replace a ton of guys, but you have to be impressed with some of the guys that have stepped up in the absence of the main guys that are getting injured on that side of the ball. But I want to talk about some of the good things I saw against Baylor. Love the fact Julius Lewis not only got the start but played almost the entire game. I thought he did an exceptional job on defense, especially the way he was covering Corey Coleman out there all night. And an incredible interception the very first drive.
That got taken away from him, and you talk about just athletic play. He showed flashes of what he can be, and you hate to say he wasted a year. Maybe it took him that long to really get the full grasp. Maybe it was health. I don't know. But, man, once he's on the field, to me, he's already the second best corner on this team behind Anthony Tejada.
Yeah.
That's just from looking at sheer ability. Is he going to get better? Yeah. He's just a true freshman. So he's already grown a lot since he's been on campus. He's put on some weight. He looks really quick out there. We all know he ran the 4.3 in front of GP, so that's what got him offered in the first place.
Yep.
But, I mean, yeah, you got to be excited about what he brings to the field coming up next season.
Another positive that I really was impressed with was Austin Schlottman's play at center.
2 weeks in a row.
This is no offense to Joey Hunt, because Joey is a great center as well, and he's going to have a chance to play at the next level. But Austin has done a tremendous job the last 2 weeks. The main thing I was impressed with, you didn't really see. You saw maybe a couple snaps that were a little high, but other than that, I mean, he basically snapped the ball perfect all night. Not to mention you have to block arguably one of the top defensive linemen in the country in Andrew Billings.
There was only one play where I felt like Billings really exposed Austin, and it was honestly, it was just, and you could tell Austin knew as soon as the play was over that he messed up. But dude, give me that performance against Billings, and give me that performance that he did against Oklahoma's defensive tackles the week before.
Nothing.
He acted like it was commonplace for him. He's been doing it for 4 years. He acted like a senior leader out there on the line, and man, you got to be excited about that. Whether it's center next year, whether it's guard, he's going to be such a versatile key cog on that offensive line next year. You got to be excited about what he brings to the table.
The fact that he can play center, guard, or tackle is going to be so invaluable to him as he gets older when it's time for him to start getting evaluated by NFL teams.
Oh,
he's a big kid.
They're going to eat him up in the draft. I'm telling you, that kid's going to go high. Look, it's early, but I can tell you right now, Austin Schlottman's going to get drafted high. He is big,
I think so too.
He's athletic, and he's very versatile, and that's what they look for.
Very strong.
Very strong. So, I mean, yeah, he's still got 2 more years for TCU, but, I mean, it doesn't hurt to look ahead and at the potential that he possesses.
One of my favorite plays of that game was the fan favorite, I think, on the board, Ethan Perry. And I talked about it in my thoughts from the game. He might have had the worst play of the game and the best play of the game all in the same play when he dropped the snap but was still able to get the ball away. And I think the way Oatman tackled him forced his leg to pop up the way it did. But the fact that Ethan even made contact with the ball off such a knucklehead play could only happen to Ethan. But if I went back and looked at that, when he picked up the ball, he had dropped back at least 1 or 2 yards to get that fumble. So you're talking about from the line of scrimmage, he's already 13 yards back. By the time he drops it, he's 15 yards back. He's able to get a punt off that goes 8 yards past the line of scrimmage. So you're talking about a 22 to 23 yard swing in field position. That was huge, especially.
Think if Baylor would have taken over right there where he got hit.
Yeah. That would have been a couple plays for Baylor. Could have been you can't really say that because of the way the defense was playing, but the field position Baylor would have had on that would have been extremely hard for TCU to overcome. But the thing about it is he somehow gets that ball away, and I sat there and watched that play over and over and over and just thought, how in the heck did he get it away like he did? And
he was focused. Look, it's hard to catch a ball when it's wet like that, even if it does hit you right in the hands. And it just, unfortunately, happened to him right at the worst time, but he was able to pick it up and get rid of it. Somebody, I can't remember who it was on the board that said this, and I probably would have never even considered this until it was mentioned. Looking back on that play, that person on the board mentioned Sean Oakman as a selfish player because if he was a team player, he would have went for that clear and easy block there. Instead, he wanted a highlight reel hit, and then he was even caught looking up at the big screen to see what it looked like. Yeah. You could have had your team in position to score the winning touchdown there, but hey, at least you killed the punter, right? So, trust me, I would not say this to Sean Oakman, but he's in Waco. We're good.
He might hear you though. He might be coming after you in Alito. The last positive I want to talk about is Ty Summers. Ty goes out there and has 23 tackles. It's a record high for linebackers under Gary Patterson. And that's saying something. When you think back and think of the linebackers that have played under GP.
Daryl Washington, Jason Phillips, Tank Carter.
David Hawthorne, I mean, the list goes on. And for him to come out there and get those 23 tackles a week after he was ejected in the Oklahoma game says a lot about his character. I think Ty had something to prove out there. And I said on the board, I think if Ty would have been in there in the second half against Oklahoma, we probably wouldn't have seen P. Ryan break loose for that 72-yarder he had late in the game.
He is really, we talked about it last week. He's improved tremendously. And I think you have to give a ton of credit to Gary Patterson, obviously, and then Damani Cross, obviously. But don't forget Jason Phillips' influence on him.
Yeah, Jason's helping coach the linebackers.
And that's, you've got some really good defensive minds working with this kid. They obviously saw a linebacker in him when they recruited him. And for him to already get to this point as a redshirt freshman, I mean, you got to be excited about what Ty's bringing to the table. He's only going to get better. And you could say that about just about anybody on the defense right now. They're young. They're going to get better.
Yeah.
And you got to be excited about what that means for the future.
Davion Pearson has a good game, too. 13 tackles.
You're gonna miss that guy.
1.5 sacks, fumble recovery.
You're gonna miss that force in the middle next year just a little bit.
Yeah, just like they missed Chucky Hunter this year. I think Davion was actually a better defensive tackle, but it is going to be hard for those guys to be replaced, especially Davion in the middle. But Frogs finished 10-2, great regular season. If you would have told me at the beginning of the year Frogs would have all the injuries they had, and they're going to finish 10-2, I would
23 starters missed time with injuries.
I would have said, just give it to me right now. And again, it just speaks volumes of the type of coaching that you're going to get at TCU when you go there. And the next man up mentality, you got to give credit to those players as well.
They bought in.
Exactly. They bought in. They listened to the coaches and went out there when it was their time to shine. They got it done. So good job to those guys. Last night, the playoff rankings come out. The Frogs are at number 11. And for the first time, I agreed with the committee where they put the Frogs. I figured they would be in the 13 to 14 range, so I was pleasantly surprised that they were up there at 11. I still think they can climb a little higher next week. There's going to be a chance for some teams to lose in front of them, but number 11 is not a bad spot to be in right now.
No, it's not, and you look at, I don't know, I'm not going to be too critical because 11 is the best you could have hoped for. The week before, though, or whenever they dropped to 19, or the other weeks.
Oh, you mean the night that I was going scorched earth on Twitter?
Yeah, because, it's great to move up to 11, but where would they have been if they wouldn't have dropped as far as they were dropped? They shouldn't have, as far as they shouldn't have been dropped. Let me rephrase.
Well,
we're not gonna, I don't want to get off on that tangent. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this. Where would they be right now if they would have beat Oklahoma?
Top 6?
Probably in the top 4.
I mean, I don't know though, because they're not Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I guess that's why it just drives me up a wall, because I do believe even if they were 11-1 right now with that win at OU, I still don't think they're sitting at 3 like OU is, or 4. I think you're looking at a number 5 or number 6. And I think that's just the uphill battle. They're going to have to keep winning, keep beating everybody's brains in the bowl games, keep recruiting, getting better and better every year. And eventually they're going to kick the door down. But it's unfortunate that after wandering around the Conference USA and the Mountain West and finally getting to a Power 5 conference, that you still have to somehow prove yourself.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm just tired of the brand is what wins out. And I want to see the best football team get in, period.
Well, the one thing about the brand this past weekend is the brand looked really good. Oklahoma,
there's no doubt,
slaughtered Oklahoma
Incredible.
State, and I'm surprised that they at least didn't move up to number 2, because Alabama didn't look like world beaters against Auburn, and Auburn's a 6-6 team, and Alabama.
I think right now Oklahoma has 3 top 25 wins, and Alabama has 0.
Right.
So because they're in the SEC, they're number 2, or what?
Well, let's talk. let's talk some chaos like we have been. What happens if Alabama? And it's not going to happen, because I said weeks ago that Clemson and Alabama were probably not going to lose again, and they've been making me right so far. But for hypothetical reasons, say if Alabama loses, SEC's not making it. SEC is not going to have a top 4 team. And the reason why I'm talking about this, I'll get to my point in a second. If Clemson loses, North Carolina's not going to jump all the way from number 10 to number 4 unless they beat Clemson by 30 points, which isn't going to happen. So you're talking about hypotheticals here. You can have a team from the ACC not making it, a team from the SEC not making it. You have a Big 12 team, possibly a Pac-12 team, because Stanford might be able to slide in there. And then you'd have the winner of Michigan State and Iowa, and then maybe even Ohio State. You'd have 2 Big 10 teams. But the reason why I talk about all this is because it just kind of goes to show that the Big 12 was patient, kind of like what they were talking about last night. They showed that they didn't have to necessarily go out and have a championship game. The Big 12 is going to be okay because they're going to have a team in there without a championship. Now, I say this with the caveat that Oklahoma won't move down when the rankings come out next week, which they shouldn't, but you never know. But I don't think they're going to move. If they move down, they wouldn't be out of the top 4 anyway. But It just goes to show the Big 12 can make it if they don't, even though they don't have a conference championship.
Here's my question though. Say Clemson does somehow lose, look.
How far would they drop?
I've watched Clemson play. They're very good, but I still stand by the fact that I've been saying all year long there's not a great team this year. There's a bunch of good teams. It's not out of the realm of possibility that North Carolina beats them the way they've been playing.
Right.
So let's say they do. And Clemson's only loss is to the number 10 team. Do they drop to 4?
But they lost to a number 10 team that's lost to South Carolina and had 2 FCS teams. That's the big argument for people talking about North Carolina jumping into the top 4, because you have to still look at their entire season. They have 2 wins against FCS teams, and their loss is a bad loss. But at the same time, Oklahoma's loss is a very, very bad loss. But they've also beat 3 top 25 teams. The way they ran through November, you have to be rewarded for that. So, I mean, it is something to talk about. You know, people aren't excited about the college playoffs. It's not a real popular subject to a lot of people, but it is very popular because people talk about it.
I think you're going to see TCU sitting around 8 on the final ranking, because I do think Clemson will win that game, and North Carolina will drop from 10. TCU sitting at 11, so they'll jump them. And then I think you're going to have another loss, depending on how bad the Iowa game goes, the Iowa-Michigan State game. If it's Michigan State that loses, that's their, second loss. Yeah. And if Iowa beats them handily, they could fall below TCU.
The cynic in me wishes upon all wishes that somehow Iowa would be put in the same bowl game as TCU so people can see the fraud that Iowa really is. I think they would get rolled by a team like TCU or a team like Baylor or a team like Oklahoma State. But I can't wait to see it, because I think Michigan State's going to beat Iowa this week, and so it's going to be a moot point.
But what's crazy to me, this is, again, my feeling on the Big Ten. There's nothing impressive about Michigan State to me this year. They should have lost the Michigan game. They barely won against Ohio State team, who I thought was overrated all year long. And so how good is Michigan State? I mean, they've got a heck of a defense.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously it's a smash-mouth football when these two teams, Michigan State and Iowa, get together. It can be run the ball, play defense. I get that. But I think you're looking at a 24-21 type game, 17-14 type game, just like the Michigan State Ohio State game was. Yeah. So I don't know what that proves. No matter who, even if Michigan State wins, does that prove Iowa was a fraud? Because I think they're all about the same, in my opinion.
Sure.
I think Iowa, Michigan State, Ohio State, all those teams are right on the same level, and which is not great, but it's good. And so, but we could go around and around on that.
You know the Big Ten and Osborne and Alvarez are up there in the committee hoping above all hope that Clemson or Alabama loses so they could slide Ohio State in there, a third place conference team.
How about Ohio State's players tweeting the committee right after their game? Why not us? Why not a second chance? I'm just like, good grief. If Ohio State gets in this year, I'm gonna be livid, and it's not for any reason other than they're not one of the 4 best teams in the country this year.
Yeah.
Period. They're just not. And so, just the thought of that drives me insane.
Well, I don't want to get you all upset.
Yeah, my face is turning red, Jeremy.
Let's talk about some good stuff, though. The bowl games that TCU has a possibility to play in. I think it's going to be the Alamo Bowl. I think the fans are definitely more behind going down to San Antonio than they are going all the way to Orlando.
I am too.
I think TCU officials can make that happen by telling the Alamo Bowl representatives that they can sell out X amount of tickets, they can sell out X amount of suites, and oh yeah, by the way, we've got a guy named Trevon Boykin that can bring a lot of fans to the game as well. So I think, in my opinion, it's going to be the Alamo Bowl that they go to, and that'd be a great game for all of us to go to. It's a 4-hour drive down to San Antonio. It's January 2nd, so you don't have to worry about Christmas and New Year's Eve, and it's on a Saturday, and it'd be I guarantee TCU would definitely represent down there.
You don't ever want to thumb your nose at any bowl game, because there's a lot of teams that would love to just go to one. But I have zero interest in playing North Carolina in Florida. I think what's best for this program is to play in the Alamo Bowl and play either USC, Stanford, or Oregon. I know that's not on maybe TCU's mind as far as trying to secure that Alamo Bowl bid, But man, I look at a matchup with Oregon, and I think in recruits' eyes, that's a juicy matchup. They'd have so many recruits at that game.
Sure.
What about even if it was USC? Even Stanford. Any of those three names are marquee names, and it's going to bring recruits, and that's what you want. And you bring in a team like Oregon, and you beat them in the Alamo Bowl in front of a bunch of really top level recruits. That just elevates your program even more. Yeah, you're not in a New Year's Six bowl game this year, but you're coming off a 10-2 season where you lost 20-something starters and you beat a Pac-12 powerhouse. Mm-hmm. It looks good for your program. So I'm chomping at the bit for these to come out this weekend to see where everybody's going, and I am keeping my fingers crossed that it's TCU and Oregon in the Alamo Bowl. That is what I want to see more than anything.
Well, let's talk about real quick. You said the New Year's Six bowls, and a lot of people are asking how come TCU wouldn't have a chance to get in there. And it's because they're going by the Big 12 tiebreakers, rules.
Right?
And so the fact that Oklahoma State, Baylor, and TCU all have 2 losses in conference, Baylor obviously has the head-to-head with the point spreads. They would have the chance to go to the Sugar Bowl. And Oklahoma State.
If Baylor lost to Texas, Oklahoma State would move in there.
Would be in, yeah.
Here's something I was thinking about, though, because the people are saying, TCU would have a shot as an at-large for one of the final big New Year's Six bowls. It would either be the Fiesta or the Peach. I don't think the Peach would take them again, so it would have to be the Fiesta. And I don't see TCU jumping Florida State when they're both idle. But what happens if Clemson loses? Does that affect the strength of schedule in the ACC in any way that TCU would be able to jump a Florida State?
The only way I think it would happen is if North Carolina just came in and just really routed the brakes off of Clemson. Did North Carolina and Florida State didn't play this year.
No.
So you really can't go by head to head with them, but you can go with common opponents. So I don't know. I mean, I would call the chances of them making it at large
less than 10%.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see it happen. I try to be an optimist in everything I talk about, but I just don't have a lot of optimism that they're going to make it to a New Year's Six bowl game. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, Alamo Bowl is right down the road.
Hey, it's a big bowl payout. It's right down the road. It'll be packed with Horned Frog fans. It's easy look, it's right in the middle of Texas, so it's the best recruits in the country can come watch you play your bowl game. And you can make a statement against a marquee name from the Pac-12. In my opinion, for the program, I think that's the best bowl game.
Sure.
That's available.
And it's one of the last bowl games they have other than the national championship. So a lot of eyes are going to be on that game regardless.
Sure.
Well, you want to talk about the elephant in the room?
I guess we can do that. Might as well.
Breaking news here, folks. Jeremiah is lead. I'm just kidding.
Wow, I just got fired and didn't even know it.
In case you guys haven't seen, there's been some speculation out there that TCU is going to be down 2 offensive coaches. What we can tell you right now is what we've been saying on the board. Obviously Doug Meacham was a candidate at North Texas. We don't exactly know what happened, what made North Texas change direction. We talked with people that are close to the program up there in Denton, and they all felt that it was Doug's job to lose or to accept. The people I spoke with about it felt that Doug was going to take the job because it was an ideal situation for him. Being in the Metroplex, you're not having to move addresses. He's likes his family being close to this area. He and his wife are both from this area. So everything that we had heard up to the point of, I guess, Sunday night, Monday morning was that he was going to be the coach. And I'm sorry, I just don't know what happened, what changed, or anything else. But I do have my finger on the other coaching situation, and that's, Texas and Sonny Cumbie. And I kind of got mad tonight because, there's been so many reports out there and just there's a lot of false information being reported about this whole thing. Yes, Texas does have an interest in Sonny Cumbie. Yes, he is their number one guy right now. I would say 95% he is their only guy right now. They may look at Sterling Gilbert from Tulsa if Sonny doesn't go down there and at least listen to what they have to say. This has not been going on for weeks. Let's just get that out of the way. Sonny did not reach out to Texas. Let's just get that out of the way. He did not reach out to Texas because he wants to coach Gerard Hurd. I mean, that's about the dumbest thing I think I've ever heard. Not that Gerard's a bad guy. This has nothing to do with Gerard Hurd, but the fact that you're creating stories out there is just ridiculous to me. You
consider the sources. That's all I'm going to say. Consider where all this information is coming from. It's all on the other side of the coin. It's all from Longhorn folks. I will put my reputation on the line. Trust me, guys. Where Jeremy gets his information from, where we get this information, there's nobody else that's getting that. It's definitely not coming from the Texas side. So you guys that have been with us long enough know that we don't just throw things out there just to see what sticks.
I can promise you 100% guarantee right now that Texas approached Cumbie. It was not the other way around. Number two, nothing is done as of this moment. This is Wednesday night. Nothing's done. Yes,
9:00 Wednesday night.
I do know that there's people that talk. Obviously, Charlie's people talk to Sonny's agent. Everyone knows that. I'm not naive. I know there's been discussions, but for the simple fact that, number one, Sonny hasn't talked to Charlie Strong, okay? Sonny's not going to accept a job without even talking to the head coach first, especially face-to-face. He's going to do that. I know Sonny. He's going to do that. Number two, Gary Patterson has not talked to anyone from Texas regarding this. So Charlie Strong has not talked to Gary about getting permission to talk to Sonny. The biggest question is, where's Sonny stand on this? I would say that it's not a slam dunk. Everyone asked my opinion. What's Sonny going to do if Meacham stays? The thing that I have to say is that Sonny has never been driven by the almighty dollar. Been doing this a long time. He's probably the most genuine coach I've ever met.
That's the word.
I mean, he really is. The fact that he left Texas Tech for just a little bit more money at TCU because he had a chance to advance his career tells me it's not going to be a money thing at Texas. If it's anything, it's going to be the chance for him to advance in his career. And I tell everyone, within 5 years, Sonny Cumbie's going to be a head coach somewhere. I don't know where, but he's going to be a head coach somewhere. He's just got that type of mentality. People love him. High school coaches love him. Recruits love him. I mean, like I said, the guy's probably the most genuine guy I think I've ever met in the profession. And I've been doing this a long time, but it's going to be interesting to watch. I think everything will start to come to fruition on Sunday into Monday. I would say right now, unless something just dramatically happens Sunday afternoon and they don't give Sonny any time to consider the options, then Texas might have a chance to say something on a Monday or Tuesday. But I've also been told that just because Meacham stays, it doesn't guarantee that Sonny's going to stay or leave Fort Worth. It's not one of those deals where it's a slam dunk. He knows what he's getting into at Texas. He knows that this very well could be Charlie Strong's
final year.
I mean, their schedule is front loaded again. They could very easily start 1-4.
And Texas loses a lot of seniors this year, so
I mean, but at the same time, it's if Sonny does get offered the job and accepts it, and he shows any bit of, light down there as an offensive coordinator, and you can see the changes in Texas's offense, it's going to open the door tremendously for him. maybe even a little bit more than it would have at TCU because he's going to be the sole play caller. But again, I'm not saying one way or another Sonny's going to take the job, but I'll say this, and I hate if I offend anyone, he'd be a fool not to listen to Texas just based on the fact that if he's so career driven, he will at least listen to what they have to say. And I've been telling a lot of people this. TCU fans have been living a dream the last 2 years, and they're eventually going to have to wake up from it because you don't have that type of talent on the same sideline for that long. They've had it for 2 years now, and eventually it's gonna. The TCU fans are unfortunately going to get pinched, and they're going to wake up, and one of those guys is going to be gone, and eventually both of them are going to be gone. But you hope that they stay around long enough to maybe when GP decides to hang up his tennis shoes and his visor and everything else for the last time, that someone like a Doug Meacham or Sonny Cumbie's there to accept the role and continue to be a head coach.
I think that's really what TCU fans want is at least to have one of them stick around and be able to have that torch passed to them. And this is no knock on Doug Meacham. Doug Meacham's a great coach, but I think a lot of people look at the age and they look at Doug Meacham at 50 and Sonny Cumbie at 34, and they see a young guy that could be at the helm longer if he was able to stick around and succeed, come after Gary Patterson. You don't want to speculate too much down the road, but that's what, TCU would love to have a young coach take over. You don't necessarily want to replace with somebody near the same age. And I'm not speaking for TCU right now. I'm just saying, in the future, in my opinion, you want to get a young guy that's energetic, that can recruit. I mean, Sonny is all those things. Guys absolutely love him on the recruiting trail. And I think he's going to continue to grow as a coach, and he's what you want in your organization. But if he does leave, you're not missing anything with Doug Meacham still on your staff if he's still here. Now, the fear is obviously on the board is if they both leave. And I don't think that's going to happen this year. It's possible, but I don't think it's going to happen this year. But I don't think for a second that if it did happen, that Gary Patterson wouldn't replace them with another high-profile, young, energetic offensive coordinator to keep this style going, because this is what has turned TCU around.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things, man. You don't want to see either one of those coaches leave, but again, you have to think about the talent that they have. If you look at Oklahoma, someone's telling me today, if you look at what Oklahoma had in 2000, they had Martin Mangino, Kevin Sumlin, Kevin Wilson, and I think one other, Mike Leach. Those four guys on staff at Oklahoma. I mean, no wonder they were awesome on offense.
Yeah,
that's kind of how it is right now with TCU. They've got a lot of good talent on the offensive side of the ball with Meacham and Cumbie, obviously Looper, Anderson, Burns. I mean, it's a good nucleus of offensive coaches, and a lot of people have asked, what would happen if Sonny does leave or if Doug leaves? Who would they bring in? Obviously, if Doug leaves, Sonny's going to get promoted to offensive coordinator. You don't have to worry about that there. But if Sonny leaves, who would you get to replace him as a quarterback coach? Doug Meacham has coached quarterbacks at Houston. He has experience doing that. But if you don't want to use Meacham as a quarterback coach and you want to make sure he's, his responsibilities are the same they have been in the last 2 years, then there's a couple names out there that I would like Coach Patterson to make a phone call to. If I'm him, I pick up the phone and I call a guy like Richard Bartell. He's a local guy. He's played ball at Grapevine, played ball at SMU. Think he had a little stint with the Dallas Cowboys. Is the quarterback coach at IMG Academy down in Florida. The school everyone talks about that has every single one of their players is a D1 recruit. He's a good quarterback coach. He's one of those guys that has trained several quarterbacks. Trained Brennan Wooten. So obviously he knows what he's doing as far as the quarterback role goes. Another guy could be someone mentioned on the board, Graham Harrell. I think that's a great idea. Pick up the phone, call Graham Harrell, and who better than then Graham, someone that also played in the air raid offense, to have some input for how the offense needs to run. And apparently, Doug Meacham likes Graham Harrell a lot, so we'll see how that goes. I mean, if in case Sonny's not here, we're just giving our. I mean, I'm not saying this is who TCU's going to call, but this is my opinion on who they should call.
And just again to be clear, the reason why you're hearing a lot of if is because this is not a done deal yet.
Right.
Period. Regardless of what anybody's hearing anywhere else, this is as of 9:00 Wednesday night, December the 2nd. This is not a done deal. That's all I can say about it.
You don't want to talk about how mad you were earlier about it?
No, man, I'm good.
Come on, man.
I'm calmed down now. I'm good.
Let's talk about some good stuff then. Let's talk recruiting. We had a big weekend last weekend. I think 5 or 6 official visitors came in. Should be another good weekend this weekend for officials coming in. We reached out to a couple guys and got some good input. I think right now everyone keeps asking us who the next commit will be. It's hard to determine, but I think they will get a commitment this weekend from a guy that we've talked about for a long time. You and I both feel Cy Martin's going to be a commitment. But, man, you look back at last weekend, the guys they brought in, Stephon Sullivan, Markel Simmons. Markel Simmons is a big-time cornerback that can, obviously play safety or corner. Tyree Horton.
Lucas Nying.
I mean, Lucas Nying has, if you guys saw the report, TCU's the top school for him. And last night, on Tuesday night, Jared Anderson went up there to Connecticut to watch one of his playoff games. Oddly enough, Connecticut plays their playoff games on Tuesday nights. I mean, that's just weird to me for some reason. But anyway, he had some really good things to say about TCU. Another big name that's coming in this weekend is Willie Allen. You talk about
literally a big name, big guy, big name. I mean, if you've guys seen this guy up close, he is unreal. He's a monster. He's a monster, and he's got a monster offer list too.
Yeah, that's the kind of lineman that could come in and be a day one starter. He's 6'7"
and a half.
Yeah, 6'7" and a half, 310 pounds. He's a good looking 310 pounds. He's chiseled up. He's a guy that could come in and potentially start at one of your tackle spots. And give credit to Chad Glasgow, man, because anytime a John Curtis recruit comes through, Chad Glasgow is always on him. And he's got such a great rapport with the coaches down there. And the reason Willie Allen is even considering TCU right now is because of Chad Glasgow and the work that he's done recruiting Willie. And like you said, his offer list is as big as he is. I mean, he's got offers from coast to coast. Pretty much choose whatever school he wants to go to. But the fact TCU's getting him in for one of his 5 official visits is huge in my opinion. And there's no doubt they're going to be showing him the red carpet this weekend while he's in town.
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of guy that can turn an offense, make it even take that next step. You start adding offensive linemen at that caliber, and that's not to take anything away from what they have right now. But Brady Foltz and some of these guys, we had how many? Let's see.
There's 6 linemen that are
okay graduating, but how many of those were 4-star linemen? Not that stars mean everything. I understand.
I think Big V was the only one.
Big V was the only one. You start replacing those guys with. You take the eye for talent that TCU has. You match that with a higher caliber athlete, and then you take the coaching that TCU offers. It stands to reason that they're going to continue to get better and better and better. And I look at the guys that they're bringing in now, and I can't quit thinking about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, the caliber of athlete that we were talking to, as compared to where we are now. What TCU's done is absolutely miraculous, and they're bringing in an elite level player at every position. The guys coming in this weekend, it's an incredible list of guys. We forgot Tremonda Moore last week, and that's another guy. and he's really high. It's going to be hard.
This wasn't even his official visit. He just
came down. And it's going to be hard to pull him away from OU. It's going to be hard to pull him from Oklahoma State. But he's got a genuine love for TCU. He about to release his top 5. He may have done it today. I'm not sure. But he told me when I talked to him that TCU was going to be in his top 5. And if I could even go off of what he's saying, I would think right now they're in his top 3, along with the 2 Oklahoma schools. That's my opinion.
Stephon Sullivan is a guy that we've been trying to reach out to. We haven't had much luck reaching him, but I know TCU still feels pretty good about their chances. Obviously, a big reason they feel comfortable is because he's been to the campus so many times. His parents live in the Dallas area. He would be closer to family over there. And not to mention the fact that they're still doing very good on offense. They're still selling him a chance to come in and compete right away. They don't have anyone on their roster that's 6'6", and 230 pounds that can run the way he can run. And you talk about a guy that would be a Jason Morrow type, it would be him.
So I heard you say Stephon twice. Is it Steven or is it Stephon?
I've been told it's Stephon.
Oh, wow. So, I've been calling him Steven every time I talk to him.
Well, well, folks, you're getting breaking news right now why he is not talking to Jeremiah.
There you go. No, I talked to Isaiah Chambers, and Isaiah told me that he hung out with Stephon the whole time that he was in town. And spent a lot of time with him and really felt like, he felt at home at TCU. Now, when I did talk to Isaiah, he felt he would end up at TCU based on the fact that LSU was losing Les Miles. Well, that's since changed. So, like everything else in recruiting, it's an up and down thing.
Sure.
But I think it comes down to LSU and TCU. It's going to be one of those 2 schools. Will TCU do enough to sway him away? We'll find out. But that's an incredible talent right there.
Markel Simmons really liked what he saw at TCU. I do think it's going to be a TCU-Nebraska battle for him. He had a great time at Nebraska, and Nebraska has already made an in-home with him, but I know TCU is going to get over there and see him pretty soon. I know they're making a lot of in-home visits the next couple weeks. Coaches will be out on the road, come back in for the weekend, at least the coaches that have their guys in town visiting. There's still going to be obviously a couple guys out on the road recruiting some guys, getting out and getting an early look at 2017s and obviously trying to fill the rest of this class out. But 2 other big names that are going to be in town that I learned about today, DeAndre Giles and David Reese. Giles is committed to Tennessee right now, and Reese is committed to Michigan. But having the chance to get both those guys down here, show them a little bit about TCU's defense, especially with Reese, they had some good quality young guys at linebacker this year. Thought, obviously we talked about Ty. Traven Howard was another guy that did well, but I think they would love nothing more than to put Traven back at a safety spot, let him be a safety where he excels the most, and maybe not if they're just come in as nickelback situation. But David Reese is a bigger linebacker, 215 pounds, plays very well. He would fit TCU's defense. Pretty much just he kind of reminds me of a Robert Henson type. Moves around pretty well. Probably not the fastest camp guy, but you put the football pads on him, he can make some plays. But DeAndre Giles, you talk about a defensive tackle that is just blowing up within the last couple months. And TCU's been on this guy for a very long time, ever since last spring, just kind of kept evaluating him. And finally they pulled the trigger, offered him. And I know the fact that Jared Anderson is on this guy and has been on him for so long is going to weigh a little bit for them. They feel pretty good about their chances with him. But if you look at the list of guys that are coming in this week, what's the one thing that you notice right off the bat?
I see guys in the trenches.
You see guys in the trenches. What's the other thing?
I see Louisiana.
You see out-of-state players.
Yeah.
There's only one guy coming in that's from Texas, and that's Isaiah.
To help pull those guys in.
Yeah, so what does that tell you about their recruiting method right now? They're going out and finding players, and that just goes to show what kind of recruiting momentum they have right now, because there's a lot of players, not only from Texas, but kids from across the country that are wanting a chance to come in and see TCU and possibly have a chance to commit to them. But I do think, like I said earlier, that TCU is going to get a commitment at some point this weekend. Think they'll have a good chance to land at least 2 or 3 guys on this list right here. I feel really good about the Giles kid. I don't feel as confident about Allen, but I do feel from the previous week that Lucas Nying is a guy that could pull the trigger for TCU. Markel Simmons, I still feel really good about him. You had a chance to catch up with Tyrell Horton for a little bit. What did Tyree Horton say about his visit?
Well, I got exactly 2 responses from him on Twitter.
Well, let's hear
It was
them.
quick. He just said that he had a great time. He absolutely loved the coaching staff, and he loved the way that the team played. He was very high on the family. You hear that so much from kids that come in, especially out-of-state kids. They're kind of surprised when it's the family feel they get at TCU. But that's the thing that Tyree said, is he really felt like it was a family, and he was really drawn to that. So, of course, he tweets out Boomer Sooner today, and all hell breaks loose. But, I mean, that's recruiting, man. I mean, especially recruiting these kind of guys. But he enjoyed his time, and I'd love to talk to him more. And one more guy that I got to talk to was a 2017 athlete, J.K. Dobbins.
That kid right there could be a difference maker.
You want to talk about somebody that's high on TCU right now? He really is. I think earlier on in the process, A&M and Texas were kind of at the top for him. A&M still in his maybe top 4 right now, but he mentioned Arkansas, and he mentioned TCU. And I'm drawing a blank on who the 4th one is right now. I have to go back and read my own.
Surprisingly, it wasn't Texas.
No, Texas.
A lot of people over the summer thought it was going to be a Texas and Texas A&M
And
battle.
so I asked him because I noticed Texas missing from that group. I said, "Is Texas not in that group?" And he said, "No, sir. Right now, I don't think they are." Does that leave the door open for them to get back into it? Yeah, but if Texas stays down at the level of play that they're at right now, they're going to continue to lose guys like J.K. Dobbins to TCU. And I'm not saying he's committing to TCU, but I'm saying TCU has a very legit shot with him.
Well, another running back that we want to talk about real quick is Kyle Porter. There was a report by our friend E.J. Holland down there at Texas. E.J. does a great job covering
Very
the state
good writer.
for recruiting, and he caught up with Kyle, and Kyle mentioned the schools he was really considering was Arkansas, Texas, and Oregon. So I, obviously got caught by surprise because I'd heard TCU was very much in it, and some people had thought that TCU was probably the top school he was looking at along with Arkansas. And so I, obviously started rattling bushes a little bit and found out that he does still have TCU among his favorite schools. Looper's going down to Katie's game if they get to play.
That's some craziness came out today. If you guys haven't heard, they had an emergency meeting of the UIL. Katie may be disqualified from the playoffs, but we haven't heard anything more specific yet.
They're supposed to find out tomorrow.
Okay.
But anyway, if they do play Friday, Looper's going to be there to see Kyle play, and apparently there's more than just 3 teams Kyle's looking at, and from what I was told, those were the 3 schools that just randomly popped up in his head. But TCU still very much in it. Another Houston kid that was getting an in-home visit tonight from Looper, Mr. Ross Blacklock. I love this kid. You've loved this kid ever since.
Man, I saw him at the Nike camp, and I was screaming, offer him yesterday. I mean, this kid is a freak of nature. Now, clear something up for me, JC, because I think we've heard both now. He plays defensive tackle, but originally TCU liked him as an interior offensive lineman.
They like him on both sides.
So he could go either way.
He could go either way if they
He's
get him
not
on
your
campus.
typical TCU defensive tackle that you see them recruiting, but I'm telling you right now, that's the kind of guy that would anchor a line and would just not be moved out of there. You want to stuff the middle of a defensive line, stick that guy in there. And
he's every bit of 6'4"
and 350 pounds, 340, 350
just
pounds.
a big kid.
And he moves well. He's not slow. I mean, he's not a burner at 340 pounds, but you're not going to move him out of there.
He's not a 5'6" kid either. So.
No, you're not going to move him out of there. So he's one of the guys I was most excited about to hear that TCU is still actually getting an in-home with him. He's the kind of talent that could play day one on your defensive line.
When you have a guy that is that big and they're telling him, hey, you could play either on the defensive line or offensive line, that means that he has great feet. And if he has good enough feet to play defensive tackle and good enough feet to play on the offensive line, he's a special talent. And that would be a great problem to have, to get him on your team and get him into a fall camp and just kind of figure it out, man, to see where he's going to.
I'm just saying, there's not a guy that looks like him on TCU's roster right now.
Not right now.
That is as big of a boy you're going to see at defensive tackle, and he brings it. He's a load.
a couple other notes that we have. The coaches are obviously making some offers out to 2017 kids. I think Kerry Vincent got an offer earlier this week, cornerback.
Good-looking cornerback.
Yeah, he's going to be one of the top cornerbacks, not only in the state, but I think he's going to be one of the top cornerbacks in the nation. I mean, this is about the time you're going to see 2017 offers start to go out, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get notes every day about new offers going out. But I want to recap back to a couple commits. Brennan Wooten and Sean Robinson, they had a chance to play against one another the other day. I didn't get a chance to see the game, but everyone I've spoken with said right now, at this point in their development, they would take Brennan Wooten over Sean Robinson right now. They said Brennan was more of a polished passer, obviously good pocket presence, threw the ball well, and Sean's just a great athlete right now that still has some learning to do.
A great athlete with a big arm.
yeah. Sean will put on a clinic at a camp, but right now with the pads, he's struggling a little bit as far as passing the ball. But you got to give Denton Guyer credit; they're just a couple games away from going to another state championship. And when I saw them earlier in the year against Ennis, I would have told you you're crazy if you thought they were going to make a big run like they have in 6A, especially when they only run the football. They're a one-dimensional team, and the guy that is running the ball for them happens to be a freshman. So, Guyer could be around.
The rich get richer.
Yeah, exactly. Well, guys, we're going to wrap this thing up. We hope you guys have enjoyed everything tonight, and obviously we're going to keep you guys in the loop as best as we can on everything involving TCU football, from recruiting, coaching changes, bowl games, whatever we want to talk about, we're going to relay to you guys, and we hope you guys enjoy the board. Hope you guys enjoy us doing this for you. But until next time, I'm Jeremy Clark for Jeremiah Glenn. You guys have a good week.
Thanks for being with us.